There's a topic that not a lot of people are talking about or training or educating anybody on this matter. Strange, especially for the students. I think every last year student, fourth or third or fourth year, should actually get an insight into this program. And the program is called the Demystifying of the Built Environment. What is the built environment? How does it work? What's the whole story? So you go in, you get you start studying. You want to get your engineering degree, diploma, BTEC, or BTEC's not falling away. That's another program, by the way. So you go in there, but you have got certain expectations, but are they real? I found that the presentations that I do to the candidates, no, to the students, especially the last year students, they've got no idea, clueless. Some of them, I think, after my presentation, run for the hills because they never go through that exercise of what is the built environment, how does it work, what's the deal with it, those kind of things. So let's tackle it. And I think it's also good for the candidates to know the built environment because you always think you know everything because you're now practicing. It's not like that, eh? I know that lots of the last year students say to me, "Man, you know what, I thought after I've got my qualification, I will be designing beautiful bridges and buildings and it will be all spectacular and stuff." But however, they do not know and understand the fact that firstly, you have to, go through a candidate phase. And then secondly, you need to get the necessary experience and guidance from your mentors. And then you have to go through a whole process of registering as a professional. It takes an average 5.5 years to get your registration. Although the policy says, or the documentation says a minimum of 3 years, in my experience, it takes about 5.5 years. But let's tackle this issue. And if the students watching this, take my details so that I can help you and explain to you the whole story. But it's good to go through this. So let's first see what is the built environment. Now, if you look at Google, Google says the following. The built environment refers to all human-made surroundings that provide the setting for our daily activities. That includes buildings, roads, bridges, water systems, power, networks, schools, hospitals, housing, and urban space. It is where engineering, architects, planning, construction, and regulations all come together to shape how society lives and functions. For me, simple. Infrastructure development from your house that you live in, to the road that you drive on, to the water that flows out of your tap, to the electricity, to, everything and anything in between. That's the built environment. Built, getting constructed. So that's what the definition all says. Well, for me, it's literally everything you touch and feel around you that was constructed by contractors and designed by engineers and architects and QSs and all of those professions that also exist out there. And that's part of your professional team, by the way. For the students, you will always be working in an environment. We have to interact with these various professions and professionals. So let's work it from the top down. Let's first have a look at who governs and shapes the built environment in South Africa. The first one is Department of Public Works. Now hear me when I say this. They are the custodian of state properties and infrastructure delivery and policy decisions that gets made. Now, if that organization or that government organization, if that fails, then it means infrastructure development doesn't work or doesn't happen, which is a massive problem. And if that doesn't happen, your roads decay, your water becomes a problem, your policies allow for corruption and all of those issues that we face on a daily basis in South Africa, then that's a problem, which means you as an engineer or any one of the other professions will not be able to get government work because the money has been stolen that was supposed to go to you. So Department of Public Works is like the main organization in there. Look, I'm not talking about the private sector. The private sector will then obviously, if the private sector is doing well, then engineers and consultants and contractors and all of them can do work for them. Example, Steyn City is a beautiful example. Plus major other developments. And I see there's a trend now for the privateers to come along and make a difference in South Africa. So Department of Public Works, if there's scallum sitting there, your money gets stolen, no work for you. We've seen how that happened. It happened in the past. I'm not speculating, it's truth. Go and look it up on Google. Go and ask AI to tell you about all of this corruption in Department of Public Works and you'll see it. These are well-documented cases. So just be very sensitive when it comes to public works. That monster is supposed to feed you, for the lack of a better word. Then you've got the National Treasury. Those organizations control the budgets and infrastructure procurement framework. It's great having a framework in place. Everybody should work according to that. That's why it exists. However, we know what really happens. So you've got Treasury, then you've got the Department of Higher Education. Obviously, they look after your qualifications and make sure that it's in line with the standards that we want. And on that note, I'm just going to stop for a second and say the following. If you're a pilot and you get 30% at your last exam, that basically and effectively means that you can literally take the plane off, but you can't land. Because at 30%, you will not be able to land a plane. So for engineers and professionals, if you get 30% for your degree, which means you can what? Design a building? I don't think so. Maybe the first floor. I don't know, but I just think that 30% is unacceptable. But that is my opinion. I just think you're setting up people for failure, and the students that scrape through at 30% are unemployable. You cannot employ them. Then you've got the Department of Labor. Now, they look after the health and safety and make sure that people don't die on site. And they've got various legislation that protects the contractors, the public, or anybody that could fall in harm's way. So they have got, and they deal with all labor matters. And just for interest's sake, if there's a fatality on site, you contact them first, just for interest's sake. So the last one is municipalities and provincial public works. Remember, you've got the Department of Public Works, but you've also got the municipality ones. And they look at the local implementation of these programs. They look at the buildings and control whatever needs to be controlled in that sphere. And they also need to give approval for plans and for buildings and a lot more. Now, those are the government organizations. Then you get a second tier. Now, this sits underneath your Department of Public Works. They actually report into the Department of Public Works. And that is called the Council for the Built Environment, the CBE. Now, theoretically, all of the other councils, which we will get to now after this, need to report into the CBE of their activities and what's going for what. So you've got the Department of Public Works with all of these other entries. Then underneath that, you've got the Council for the Built Environment. So that is now the CBE, and all of these councils need to report into them, and they're supposed to look after it. But be that as it may, then your third tier is the councils. Now remember, the councils are legislative bodies by government. So you've got 6 councils in the built environment. The biggest and strongest one, obviously, is the Engineering Council of South Africa, ECSA, mandates to registered professionals and in the various categories, specialized categories, the whole works that goes through it. And by the way, the most onerous way and difficult way to register as a professional. Then you've got SACAP, South African Council for the Architectural Profession. So that is, they look after the architects. And that's their job, to register them as professionals and look after the industry. Then you've got the SACQP, which is the South African Council for Quantity Surveying Profession. That's all your quantity surveyors, same as ECSA, same as the rest. Then you get the SACPMP. That is the youngest council of all of the 6 councils. Those are your project managers, your construction project managers, your construction managers, health and safety agents, and then also, I think they've got building inspectors now also to that list. Then you've got urban and regional planners, which is your South African Council for Planners, landscape architects, and the professions that goes with that. Just a footnote, if you just remember this, if you want to sign off, you have to be registered as a professional. Now, lots of the students don't even know this. So it's a massive thing. If you don't know that the profession that you're going to enter into, you have to register as a professional to sign off, and you don't know that. It's a problem. So, top of the echelons, we've got Department of Public Works, and then second, the CBE, the Council for the Built Environment. Then you've got all of these councils underneath, and underneath them, you have got the voluntary associations, VAs. Now, what is a VA? Now, funny enough, strangely enough, there's still candidates that do not know and understand what a VA is. Weird but true. So your VAs are voluntary associations. So that's exactly what it says. It's voluntary. You don't have to belong to them. You should. I think you should. They add value to the profession. You get contracts and all kinds of documents from them at a really good price. So I believe it's good to belong to them. So who are they? Let me give you an example. SAICE, South African Institute of Civil Engineering, or civil engineers. Now, they look after the interests of the civil engineers. Actually, a hell of a lot more. But their main focus, that's how they started, civil engineers. Great. It is a learned institution, which means individual members belong to these organizations. SAIMECI is a mechanical, SAIE is electricals, and there's quite a few of them in the built environment. They are recognized by the councils, and lots of these VA members serve on the actual council. So you will have SAICE members who volunteer their time to serve on EXA's council, CPD committees, registration committees, they become reviewers. So it's all of those kind of things that the voluntary associations do. So valuable entity, or entities for that matter. Then you've got IMISA. They look after the municipal engineers. That's the Institute for Municipal Engineers. So you know that in government you've got the municipalities. In the municipalities they employ engineers that works in the municipalities, and they look after their interests. So that's the role that IMISA plays. Then you've got SAIA, which is the Institute for the Architects. So they've got the same as the engineers. QS has got the same one, Association of the South African Quantity Surveyors. You've also got voluntary associations that look after the interests of the contractors. Now remember, engineers employ contractors, contractors employ artisans, and all of them to do the work. So there is a hierarchy to some extent. Detail, different story. But be that as it may, and then lastly, you've got also organizations, they call them business organizations. Now, business organizations is exactly that. Me, as an individual, I can't belong to CESA, Consulting Engineers South Africa. My company, like WSP or whoever, they belong to Consulting Engineers South Africa. So you've got individuals in the different areas, professional areas, and then you've got business organizations as well, like CESA. So, and they contribute so much when it comes to continual professional development. You actually get a credit for belonging to a VA, but there's another program that I've done on continual professional development where I explain how that works. So then underneath that, now let's recap. Government, Department of Public Works, Council for the Built Environment, councils, there are 6 in the built environment, voluntary associations. Then, parallel to that, or somewhere in between, you will have the actual consulting engineering firms, consulting architectural firms, QS firms, all of those ones. I'm sure you've seen them. They do the actual work, the design. And this is why it's so important to have that skill set, because you cannot afford to make mistakes, kill people, buildings collapse. You've seen it in George. and the Greystone Bridge collapse, or that scaffolding collapse. So, yeah. So these companies, they do the design, plan, analyze, engineering, managing, and supervising of these projects. So their output includes like the plans, the modules, the specifications, the cost estimates, the tenders, literally the full life cycle of a project. And that's another program that I'll do on what is the full life cycle of a project. Why would I want to do that? Because you need to have exposure to the full life cycle of a project. Otherwise, you can't register as a professional. Then you've got the architects, obviously, that does the design. To give you a few examples of the big companies in South Africa, you've obviously got AECOM, Zutari, WSP, SLR, Royal Haskoning, DHV, Bosch is there, Bosch projects. So there's quite a bit. With them and parallel to them, you'll have the contracting firms. Now, they do the actual building. They employ the artisans and the tradespeople to construct the actual building, bridge, all of those kind of things. And the engineers make sure that they play fairly, that they do the right stuff, that they follow the designs of the engineers very closely. And you've got engineers that does site supervision to make sure that nothing goes wrong when it comes to these contractors. Now, remember I spoke about SAFSEC? Now, that's part of SAFSEC, which is the South African Federation of Civil Engineering Contractors. So you know about the 6 councils? Now you've also got SAFSEC. It's not a council, but they're quite powerful because they have got companies that works with them very closely, like WBHO as an example, Aveng, Group 5, Legacy, they are now called something different if I'm not mistaken. Do you still remember Murray and Roberts? Also Legacy, plus thousands of these Bucky brigades or small contractors, medium-sized contractors, and they've got a register of all of these specific people. So I'm going to recap again. Top, Department of Public Works, Council for the Built Environment, 6 councils in the built environment, lots of voluntary associations, consulting firms that's going to appoint you or employ you as an individual with the aim of becoming a professional, and then also the contractual side of things, which is your SAFSEC that obviously looks after the interests of the contractors, including these big contracting firms. So, the professional spectrum and the reality check for the students coming through. I'm going to say something here. If an individual has got their qualification, and hear me when I say this, you can't do much with that individual. You got the qualification, but you really don't have the skill set yet to do designs and to take responsibility for your work and those kind of things. It literally takes a minimum of 3 years to get there. So don't be disillusioned after you got your qualification to think, oh no, it's cool, now you're going to get the opportunity to design and build these beautiful stuff. It doesn't work like that. So you've got different qualifications, the BEng, CEng, all of those kind of eng degrees, and then you've got the old BTEC and the modern qualifications that allows you to register as a technologist, and then your diploma, which will be your technicians. Same for the architects and the QSs, all of them. They've also got categories of registration. Same story. I just think EXA is a little bit more wider. And if you don't have a qualification, you won't be able to register as a professional. However, if you've got, I think, a minimum of 15 years experience plus additional training that you've done and that you're operating on the right level and a massive task, so bloody difficult to get registered through the alternative way, because you need to prove that you actually got the underpinning knowledge to do the same work as a person that's got a qualification. Try that one on for size. So you might be able to register as a technician or even a technologist if you really have got that experience, covering the 11 outcomes, working on level E, progressively move through the ranks, did additional training, and I say serious additional training, then yes, maybe. And you've got many years of experience, then maybe. And it's happened before that you can do it. I am, however, certain that there is no one that I know of that's ever used the alternative route to become registered as a professional engineer. I haven't seen that. I don't think it will really happen because that's hectic. In the old days, there was a grandfather clause who sort of bypassed that challenge. But be that as it may. So, without accredited qualification, you're going to battle. So, what is the accredited qualification? You need to be very, very sure about the university, FET, or whatever you're going to or wherever you're going to study, universities of technology, that university is accepted by EXA as a credible university and that they accept their qualification. Now, don't get confused. The Department of Higher Education and the SAQA system does not apply to EXA. EXA, so let's say, for instance, you've got a qualification in the Netherlands, you come to South Africa and you want to practice here, and you want to register as a professional, you need to take that qualification and submit it to the educational committee, who will then decide what you can register as. So bear that in mind. And the reason why they operate above the rest is due to the fact that they signatures to international accords. So there are 3 accords for the engineers. It's the Washington Accord, then you've got the Sydney and Dublin Accord for the technicians and technologists. And the signatures to that means that they will accept your qualification in the country that you register in, not your professional status, your qualification. So if you've got a signature qualification, then it's acceptable as the base entry qualification to become a professional. To become a professional, or to be mutually recognized as a professional, there's very few countries that does that. If you've got your qualification, you're not a professional yet. You're not going to walk into the place and design and do all these wonderful stuff. You will go through a vigorous process of training, development, mentor will be allocated to you, and you need to jump through the hoops. 11 outcomes, 5 levels of competency, degree of responsibility, as they call it. So you need to go through that, and it's difficult. But if you work for a really good company, and there's some really good ones, like I've been consulting to WSP for years now, and we've got a very solid program in place that we take the students or final year students or employed new candidates right through the process. We train them on 11 outcomes. We make sure that the application is sound when it goes to EXA. We review the applications. By the way, it's another service that I do, is a preliminary review, just to give yourself a better chance of getting professionally registered. We do. I help them how to structure their PowerPoint presentations. We do mock interviews with them so that you can break that ice. Doing a presentation is daunting. We all know that. So, and then also a bit of damage control if that should happen. The 11 outcomes are there. All of those training subjects that I do, you'll find on my channel as well. It's called the 11 Outcomes Explained or Demystified. I can't even remember, but they are there. To summarize, elements, you've got the government, CB, professional councils, voluntary associations, consultants, contractors, and then your graduates. So that's in a nutshell how the built environment works. What seems to be very simple and straightforward turns out not to be like that. It's a different ball game. You need to understand how it works because you're going to work with various professions in the built environment. I think the students should be exposed to this. I think they need some serious eye-opener when it comes to the profession that you've chosen. Ask yourself this question: when you were a student, did you know all this stuff? Did you know that professional registration is such an important thing? And if I may interrupt myself, here's another thing. The identification of engineering work that was launched on the 1st of April 2025 basically says if you're not professionally registered, you can't do the work that you trained for. So is it worth registering as a professional? Hell yeah, you should. So, did you know all of these things when you were a student? I don't know. Did you know that you had to, after you've been professionally registered, did you know that you need to do CPD, continuing professional development? Did you know that you also need to get 25 credits over a 5-year cycle? And one of the categories is compulsory. You have to do it. So developmental activity. You need to get a minimum of 5 credits over the 5-year cycle. Did you know that? As a student, I doubt it. As a candidate, I think you sort of touched on it. If you've been through my training, you would know it, because you complete a form called the IPD, the Initial Professional Development Form. And the IPD is different to the CPD. I had a case literally the other day where I looked at this application and the IPD form was very sparse. I think there were four or so training events that was registered on an IPD form. And I thought, no, man, this is not right. And they're all CPD. So I went back and said, look, you are aware of the fact that you can do and register your informal training, the webinars that you go on, the presentations that you do, all of those kind of things. You can not claim, but you can register that on your IPD form, because there's computer training, there's managers training, there's technical training, all of those kind of things. Did you know that? And they didn't. And now if they did submit that, they would have chucked it out and say, look, we're a little bit concerned. You haven't done much IPD. But he did. He just didn't know that he can register all of them, because he thought it's like CPD. You need to get a certain amount of credit, which he did. But no, very far from. Totally different ballgame. Look at my CPD and renewal of professional registration video. It's also available. Okay, so there you have it. That's in a nutshell how the built environment works, how it's structured, the hierarchy of that. Just bear in mind, you've got government and private side of things as well. So if you ever visit other countries and you see that there's a lot of infrastructure development happening, then you must know that the economy is doing well. I would even go as far to say that engineers or these professions are fundamental to the economy of a country, especially in South Africa. They design the future. They design everything. They give you access to water, electricity, everything. Political landscape and political interference and all of that goes with it. That is one of the major barriers to successful projects in South Africa, and also political buy-in. And it's amazing that you sit with all of this technology and skilled people, and my word, we've got brilliant people. That's left. If you know how many engineers has left South Africa, it saddens me. But before I get all emotional about that, let's get back to the point. Only for the politicians to come and destroy all of that good work. And on that negative note, let's get a little bit more positive. If you've got friends at university and they don't know the landscape, please point them in this direction so that they can at least understand what they're getting themselves into. So please bear that in mind, point them this way. I hope you've learned something from it as well. One assumes that everybody knows it, but you actually don't, as you've seen now. So hopefully this helps and contributes. Remember, we can help you in all of those aspects. I would like to actually get the students or the candidates very early in their career so that they can get used to the fact that they must document whatever they do right from the start. I've got a thing called the Workplace Training Plan. It's an app and it's also got a template. So if you want that, I can send it to you and you can have a look at it and use it as your diary, for lack of a better word again, to document whatever you've done. And if you don't believe me how important it is, go and ask any professional engineer, especially the older ones. Ask them, what was the most difficult thing that they had to do when they were ready to register? Go back 5 years and try and figure out, what did you do 5 years, on what projects, and what was your role and responsibilities, what problems did you face, how did you solve that? And they'll say, geez, man, that's difficult. It's extremely difficult. So it's important that you get your ducks in a row and that you be prepared for this up front so that you don't scatter around later trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Okay, so that's me, and that's the built environment for you. I hope it's now a little bit more demystified. and I shall continue with more videos as we move through time. I most probably will be committed to do lots more. Then good luck with the industry and your professionalism and registration.